Did you notice anything with my mic in the last episode?
No.
I don't know. When I was listening back to it, it sounded like I was like quiet to start, and then I slowly got louder as the episode went on. So I don't know. Maybe I just gotta focus on enunciating. I think.
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah.
mean, I really got to just get that mic set up in a way where I don't have to listen to that vibrating shit. But I have not even
Yeah.
contemplated how to fix that.
The only thing that I could think of is if you got a like a mic stand that is on the floor, because you can like it can go up and then around,
Yeah, it wouldn't be
because
touching
then
the
it would
ground.
just be what, like, I mean, I guess if you hit the floor or something, it might like vibrate a little bit, but
Yeah,
it wouldn't have the desk issue, I guess.
yeah. I'll figure it out. I was even thinking about it the other day. Like I could literally just like hold it, but that would just get annoying after an hour.
Yeah.
All right. Testing 1 2 3 1 2 3.
Testing 1 2 3 1 2 3.
We are good on Twitch. Good on YouTube.
All right. I'll make sure I have a Twitch pop out chat just in case anything happens there that doesn't actually come through. You ready to start?
Yep.
Hello and welcome to episode 223 of the Ego Chall Podcast. My name is Preston Byers, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host Justin Binkowski. And on today's episode, we are breaking down the second major of the 2026 CDL season. Major 2 is just 48 hours or so away, even less than that, considering it's going to be in England. But we're here to break it all down, to preview a very highly anticipated and long-awaited major. We've gone through 11 qualifying matches for every single CDL team. It's been a really long time, but I'm glad that we're actually here. We get to talk about it. We get to make some predictions and all of that. But before we get to any of that, how you doing, Bink?
Yeah, doing all right. Happy partial opening day for baseball fans, but mostly just Yankees fans and Giants fans because they're the only team playing tonight. Opening day is actually tomorrow. I don't know, technically which people will determine as opening day. I would assume people still count tomorrow as opening day. But regardless, happy baseball season. It's upon us. It's finally here. And in the same vein, LAN action for Call of Duty is finally here. Like Preston said, it's been a little bit of time. And we're finally back, finally going back to uh, the UK, which we can maybe get into in part because I've notoriously had some hot takes on that in the past. But yeah, Lancod is back. I'm excited, and should be a good weekend ahead.
Before we get into the major, we have some other news to talk about. I think the biggest news really dropped, just a little bit ago. We're recording this at 2 p.m. Eastern. At 1, COD announced the Season 3 slate, the maps that are coming, some of the game modes and all of that that are coming in Season 3, which begins on April 2nd. And of note to really us, some former competitive maps such as Hacienda, which have been in multiple Treyarch games now, Gridlock, Summit, and Plaza, among others, are going to be added at some point in Season 3. Some of those will be at the beginning, and then some will be mid-season. We've talked about just the need for more maps in Black Ops 7 and in the competitive pool specifically. We haven't gotten that yet. We haven't gotten any new maps. We just had Blackheart kind of go out and then come back in during the first stage, but we haven't gotten anything else since then. What do you kind of see as like potential? Are there any, I guess, potential competitive maps in this pool that you think actually get into the CDL by the end of the season?
Well, I think that's a loaded question. Are there any maps that should be added to the map pool from this group? Yes, absolutely. I think Gridlock would be returning for the first time to a COD since Black Ops 4. That was a staple for Black Ops 4 competitive and should in theory be able to work for all three game modes in Black Ops 7.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Same with Hacienda. Hacienda is coming mid-season though, so that makes it less likely to be added than potentially Gridlock, which would be coming first. And Plaza, I think Plaza is, an interesting map from Black Ops 2 that could, in theory, work for maybe Hardpoint, maybe Search. It was used for both, I think, at the very beginning of Black Ops 2, and then I think it got phased out as well. Maybe it was used for Search still, but I just remember the hard point that the music in the first hill on hard point was iconic there, like entering the dance club, and it was
Hmm.
awesome. So I was telling Tremy that yesterday. I hope that's back just in terms of the map itself, not even from a competitive standpoint. But um to the bigger point of your question, there are still maps from season 1 and season 2 that haven't been added to the map pool because there just haven't been any changes yet. And those options are still available, notably like Fringe. Pretty sure Standoff is in, so maybe something for a search there. There have been other maps that we've talked about now, and they're slipping my mind at this moment. But regardless, Meltdown obviously for search too. Um, we saw before the season even started, Spinna Spence there with the CDL mentioned that they would evaluate map pool changes after Major 1. That seemingly didn't happen, or the pros were just too lazy and didn't feel like trying some of these maps out, or just didn't have the time, or whatever this kid's situation may be. Um, but I feel like these maps, especially Gridlock and Hacienda, should be included in the map pool, but I just have a bad feeling they aren't going to be added because of the timing and everything like that. So I'm hopeful to be wrong in that sense, but I do think after this Major 2, this little break they have between Major 2 and the Major 3 qualifier starting, that is potentially the last real opportunity the league would have to evaluate the map pool and make meaningful changes. It would effectively be the halfway point of the regular season, not counting like champs in EWC. So it makes sense from that perspective. But I just go back to last year where Fringe was added. I'm pretty sure it was added before Major 4 or like right before Major 4.
Hmm.
And we were saying like they could have added it for EWC, but it still felt like too little too late at that point. And I just have that same feeling with these. Like obviously it's not as late with this season 3 announcement. Um but I just have a bad feeling that we're going to have some other examples of historic maps coming back to a new COD title and not being fully utilized by the CDL. And like I said, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I look like an idiot in a couple weeks and all these maps are added and we get some new stuff to see in the CDL and new battlegrounds and all that stuff. But uh, I'm not exactly hopeful.
Yeah, these new maps I think are coming in a little bit too late, especially for the Major 3 qualifiers. Because so season 3 comes out on April 2nd. Major 3 qualifiers begin on April 17th. So there are 2 weeks between the introduction of the maps and the beginning of the actual competitive matches. That doesn't mean anything because the league would want to quote unquote test it out, even though it should be they really like the developers should already be sending these tests out for the players and the teams, and so they can get used to it, just so if they wanted to
Good
bring it
joke.
into the Major 3 qualifiers. Yeah. But certainly the maps that you just discussed, Cliff Town is obviously probably going to
Yeah.
have to hold off until Major 4 as well, if that is even a possibility. But like Standoff, for example, is a good one where it's already in the game, and you would think that it would be something kind of at the top of mind for the CDL, but that hasn't been the case. We've had to wait until we're about to enter April, and we haven't had any new maps come in since the season started in like mid-December. So it's been a really long time. I don't see it changing. After Major 3, like you said, we were talking about it in the pre-show, and it makes sense in my mind at least, and I'm sure as someone who follows League of Legends pretty closely, like changing things up major to major, kind of quote unquote season to season or whatever, would make a lot of sense to diversify and freshen things up. But that hasn't been the MO of the CDL historically. I don't think it's going to happen here. I do think we will get changes before the major three qualifiers because that's a huge, huge miss if we have the same exact maps for the entire season. I just think that's a horrible recipe for success for the league. But we'll find out, I guess. We have about 3 weeks from now until the major three qualifiers start. I'm sure we'll hear something a little bit before then as to what maps, if any, are coming in or going out. Rickus Morty's back in the YouTube chat. I'm going to start banning him for his opening remarks every single time. He said it's the CDO's job to do the map pool, not the players. CDO need to be adults and do their damn jobs. Is there a reason the map pool didn't change Major 2? I agree. Bank agrees. We have to, for the CDL, they should always look at what the viewers want and try to balance that as much as they can with what the players want or what the players need in terms of competitive. But as a fan, first and foremost, it's always, I think, in the best interest of the leagues to, and regardless of whether it's the CDL or if it's League of Legends or if it's the professional sports leagues, really they should always be looking to improve the viewer experience as much as they can without getting away too far from kind of their core sport or core game. And, adding in these maps, even if there are some issues, I think just let it happen. Like there are going to be issues on any map. If it's game breaking and whatever, like the Blackheart situation at the beginning of the season, then I kind of understand that. But if it's just that this map isn't fully tuned, if it's not perfect or anything, nothing is really perfect. None of these maps that are in this current Call of Duty will be, I don't think remembered for years and years to come the same way that Raid and Standoff and a lot of these other maps that have made it back into games. I don't think they're going to be remembered for being anything special. So it's certainly just something that the CDL should take control of and take a point and move forward with, but they don't seem to want to do that. So any other thoughts on the map stuff before we move on?
I'll just say I brought this up the last time we talked about maps, which might not have been that long ago. Honestly, it was whenever we were talking about the Yemen remake,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe it was before that too. I think it was probably the time before that, but regardless, the I believe it was last year, if not two. No, I think it was Black Ops 6. There was a mat. Was it the? It was Rewind Hardpoint at the beginning of the year or something. I don't remember. It's all a blur for me now. But there was a vote at the beginning of the year, and this was publicized by Breaking Point, I believe. And it was not a vote. I'm sorry. It was Breaking Point said the CDL was using veto statistics to determine what map should be removed from the map pool at
Yeah.
that point, and it was early in the season or whatever, and they were just like, this map has been vetoed the most for whatever mode. I'm pretty sure it was a hard point map, and they're like, so if it's not being played, we're just going to get rid of it and add something else in. I think that is from a pure analytical standpoint, that's that can make sense,
Mm-hmm.
but there are instances where there could be issues with that, where team especially with Blackheart this year, Blackheart might not be the most vetoed map because it was unable to be vetoed at the start of the season when it was removed, and that could skew the numbers a little bit. So I guess you would have to
Mm-hmm.
look at the percentage of maps, the map percentage of matches the maps were available in, and how often they were vetoed in that. That's a rare instance, I guess, of it. But regardless, I think there are inevitably issues that would pop up if the league was it's basically the same thing as why GAs exist in any
Yeah.
extent. Um yeah, rewind hardpoint. Okay, yeah, so I remember that. But the GAs exist because the league is unable to fully police some of the stuff that the pros deem unworthy of being in a competitive standpoint. Do they take the GAs to a far, far extreme? Yes, undoubtedly. But at a basic level, there are still things in every Call of Duty game that should be banned and
Hmm.
aren't. I can't think of a really good example right now, but I know in previous games, just for lack of a better example, like RPGs were sometimes left in, like the LMGs were sometimes not banned, the marksman rifles or the burst guns or the single fire rifles, et cetera, et cetera. I could go on for days. If we're just leaving it up to the CDL to make these map decisions, that does inevitably open the CDL up to these situations where the players get super pissed and then they just end up auto vetoing the map that is just added to the map pool. If they, like, let's just say they added Nuketown, because that's obviously not a good
Hmm.
competitive map. Like if the if the COD CDL was just like, we're gonna throw Nuketown in the CDL list, the players could be like, okay, all of us, let's just agree to veto Nuketown every single time, and then this
Yeah.
new map they just added is never gonna get played. And I could see that being a situation that actually unfolds. And it hasn't happened yet, but I just think it's a weird situation, because like this isn't like Valorant or Counter Strike, which is known for like they remove these maps and then they tweak them and make changes, and then they add them back to the pool eventually, and they remove another map and they make tweaks to that. But that brings us full circle to our never-ending topic of not having the dev support of those games and not just having one title. It's always a different game every year, yada yada. We'll be here for 3 hours, and I know you got to go, so I'm not going to yap too much about it. But yeah, end of the day, I just want to see some new maps. I don't know if we are going to for sure, but I'm hopeful that there's at least an opportunity here with all of these maps coming in season 3, plus the maps that have already been added and that have been added to Black Ops 7 in seasons 1 and 2, but haven't been truly experimented with for the CDL yet.
I've said it before, but I think it's worth saying just because we're on this conversation. If the CDL really wants change in the map pool and they want teams to play different maps and they want, for example, Blackheart to be introduced more into Hardpoint and played more consistently, then the best way to do that is not to add new maps. It is actually, well, that is one way to do it, but you could also just like say like Den's out, like we're not going to bring Blackheart out and then hopefully add in some other hardpoint maps that you'll play. No, we're going to take out Den, we're going to take out Scar, we're going to take out Colossus. We're going to take out maps that we know you're playing a ton, that we know you're comfortable on, and we're going to try to push you outside of your comfort zone, that you're going to have to resort to Blackheart. You're going to have to get better on that map. You're going to have to get better on Clifftown, or you're going to have to get better on Standoff, whatever it may be. That is a way to do it. Obviously, that's a very hostile way to deal with the CDL players, and there's always going to be a ton of pushback from both the players and the coaches and the fans. But at the same point, again, it's about the viewers. It's not necessarily about them. And if the players want to kind of make a stance, then they could always kind of team up and quote unquote unionize to make sure that their demands are met when they want them to be met. But that hasn't been something that they have been eager to do. And therefore, the league, in theory, could take advantage of how separated everybody is in the CDL. So we're at a point where, I mean, we've talked about this so many times before, and I'm sure we'll continue to talk about it as we move forward. But the CDO does have options, and one of them is to replace those highly played maps with lower played maps, and another one is to flood the zone, basically, and it's to add, like not to remove any maps from the pool, but just to add more maps to the pool, which makes the veto process even more, I would say, entertaining if it was actually broadcast and not just kind of like something after the fact that people bring up. But I would love to hear like the conversations that teams have, or coaches or whoever is kind of the representative in the veto process. I would love to hear those conversations as to why they do something, why they ban a certain map, why they pick another map. And I think that would only be emphasized more, and the veto process and the coaching would actually be even more important if you add more maps, because then teams can say, well, we're just going to ban Scar because we know that they're good at Scar, and then the other team's going to ban Den, and then we're going to ban Colossus, and then we're going to pick this. And like, I feel like if you added 3-4 hardpoint maps, then it really is kind of like a crapshoot. You're really going to get, I think, some interesting map rotations, and whether it's a 3-game series or a 5-game series, I think that you're going to have some pretty entertaining series regardless. Rickus Morty said CDL doesn't do themselves any favors by having the same 3 maps all over the 3 game modes. I totally agree with that. I mean, League of Legends doesn't have that issue as much nearly. Like, I mean, you could have the same 10 champions theoretically, but like there's just no way that's going to happen. I don't know how many times that's actually happened where it's just like this team picked the same 5 for 1, 2, or 3 maps in a row. Like, that just is not something that actually happens. He also said you have a bunch of ex-pros who would have zero issue testing any map the league wants to use and would be less biased. Scrappy doesn't want to scrim for 8 hours a day. How could you expect a pro player to have an 8-hour workday? I mean, I agree with all that. I think the maps is an underrated factor in the burnout. If you're playing the same map over and over and over again, it's a lot easier and it becomes a lot quicker process to just say, like, screw this. I don't want to do this every day of my life. I would like to do something different. And I think that's a kind of an overlooked part of this. Okay, anything else on the maps before we move on?
Just gonna throw it out there. We don't have to talk too much about it, but to round out the league point is they recently, at last season, they added what they're calling fearless mode, and it's whenever you're playing a best of 3 or a best of 5 series, if a champion is picked, they are no longer allowed to be used in the previous games of or the following games. So you get in these situations like at Worlds and stuff where you're in game 5 tied 2-2 and you have your 40 champions are not able to be played. You got to reach down deep down in your bag and pull something out. And it's actually, I don't know how widely contested it was. There were definitely some people vocal last season about it at first, but as the season progressed and especially as it got to Worlds, it got like major appraisal, and a lot of people have liked it, including myself. So I guess that's just one way of showing that, you can make these potentially controversial decisions as a league, and they can pay dividends if you actually are just willing to, try something out.
I mean, I'm just thinking how that would translate to the CDL, and obviously it's different.
Yeah.
But if you had, like, let's say Paris and Optic, they played in the winners finals of Major 1. Let's say that those maps that they played in the winners finals could not be used in the grand finals. So you'd have to have more maps, but it would increase the intrigue. It'd be like, okay, like, Optic had their preferred maps in Series 1. Now for this best of 7, best of 9 series, they don't have the same maps that they can rely on in the grand finals.
I'm pretty sure in the best of 11 continuation series, like, you didn't replay the maps. That, like, if you, I would have to go back and look at that COD champs between Impact and Envy, but like I'm assuming Meltdown S&D wasn't a part of their first series, and obviously that's the map it ends on, right? So I guess that's another full circle moment there, bringing up continuation series for it to not matter.
Yeah, and this just makes me miss the ban protect from Black Ops 3. I know that there were a lot of complaints about it, but I think it added an element to Call of Duty that is just sorely lacking now. That you could ban, the top SMG gun, the top AR gun. You could ban what was it, the boost, you get extra boost or whatever. Like that.
I always banned the perk. I think it was called Afterburner, but I can't remember.
Yeah,
it was the perk where when you would do the advanced movement in Black Ops 3, you would ping on the mini map as if you were shooting a non-silenced gun. So I was always ban that and be like, yeah, you guys can do your wall bounces and shit if you want, but I'm gonna know where you are.
Yeah, or you could ban dead silence and S&D, so it's like it just slows the game down. Like, but that's the stuff that especially for, and Rickus Morty said the ban protect took too long. I think it took too long for like a ranked play match. You're like, I just want to kind of get in and get out. But for a pro match, like, it makes total sense. Like, if you look at League of Legends, I know we keep bringing it up, but like League of Legends has like a really kind of prolonged ban protect phase or whatever, and that's a part of the match itself. It's just that's kind of like, I don't know what the equivalent would be for any other sport. Like it's almost like watching like the shoot around for these teams as they're kind of like preparing and like strategizing. And I think that would be great for the CDL specifically. I think it'd have to be tweaked like heavily for ranked play just to make it kind of more palatable for like the regular audience. But for a competitive match, I think it increases some of that hype that you get before a match, especially if it's really important, especially if teams are doing things, weird things, and banning guns that they shouldn't be, quote unquote. I think that just adds to it. Of course, it does kind of decrease the skill gap, but again, that's something that you balance between the entertainment factor that you can have with these weird guns and weird perks that are happening or in the weird maps versus the competitive integrity. So, yeah, that kind of plays into the Ricky Morty's last point where he's like, at the end of the day, I still want the best team to win. And I would, my only argument against that would be that the best team in my mind is the team that is able to adapt to the circumstances that they're left with. And, I don't want to see the same thing happen over and over and over again, because it really is just like they've perfected this kind of limited skill set that they have, whether it be just like 3 or 4 maps that they know they have to be good at, or they have to have 2 guns that they know they have to be good at, versus I have to be used to everything now that is in the game. So again, I think it's open to debate. I hope that the CDL does have some of these kind of debates and is open to some of the changes, but we'd have to bring Ban Protect back, and who knows if any developer is going to be willing to do that after Black Ops 3. It's been nearly a decade at this point. I think we should move on, because there's a kind of a related topic, and it was the resurgence of Modern Warfare 19. I saw people talking about it, and I think there was some kind of maybe it was Steam graphs where it was like 60,000 people were playing MW this past week. That game is absolute dog shit, and it should be burned alive. I think a lot of pro players feel the same way. Temp and Octane certainly do. We played a lot of Modern Warfare together. What is your opinion of that game now we're, I guess, 6-7 years removed?
I honestly cannot believe that this is like even a debate. So I believe that I didn't double check this, but I'm pretty sure I saw something that said like there was a Steam sale that made MW 2019 $5.
Okay.
And like if that's the reason people are going back to this game, like whatever. Like I mean, they're wasting $5. I know $5 in today's economy isn't able to buy you much, but like I could go, you know, I'd say a $5 footlong from Subway. I haven't had Subway in years, and they don't even have $5 footlongs
Yeah, they're like
anymore.
$7.
But
So
you get the point. There's definitely more. There's definitely better things you could do with $5. And I mean, you could even put $5 in a bank account and just let it sit there and grow at least like 0.0001% interest every, or like a hundredth of a penny every year, and that's still more valuable than wasting $5 in MW 2019. But yeah, I cannot fathom that this was even like a debate. I think I saw Hitch like going back and forth with Aches about it, and like I cannot think of one redeeming quality of MW 2019 that makes me want to say like yes, that game was anything other than just absolute dog shit, like you said. I it honestly blows my mind. I still remember like I played a lot of GBs during that game, and I think that is part of this whole thing is like due to the timing with COVID and everything like that. People played MW 2019 more than probably a lot of the other CODs in recent memory, just because of everything going on in the real world. Also with Warzone coming out at that time, that's literally the only time I ever played Warzone, and like, like it was just it was a kind of a perfect storm in terms of timing for when you could get people to play a game that bad, because like if MW 2019 was released this year, like we've already seen what Activision and Microsoft has said about the sales for Black Ops 7. Like if MW 2019 was released this year, I'm pretty confident the player numbers would be at an all-time low. So, um, I vividly remember, and it will always stick with me, playing GBs on Hackney Yard in MW 2019 with those loud ass doors
Yep.
that you had to run through. You didn't even have to. Obviously, Hackney was one of the smaller maps, but like you didn't even have to cover the entire maps because you could just sit in one area and then you could hear the doors open on the other side of the map and you're like, oh well, we know they're over there now, and then you could rotate and stuff. So it was like I just cannot fathom. And admittedly, there was some pretty cool storylines from a CDL perspective during that year. I still think, I mean, we had domination for Christ's sake being played in the CDL that year. Like, you could not get me to say a super positive thing about the game other than I did enjoy playing GBs just because there was not a lot better to do and it was still competitive COD and competitive search at the end of the day. But man, it just blows my mind that some people are actually like trying to say that the game is anything other than just one of the worst Call of Duty titles of all time. And for the people who aren't watching the stream or the YouTube video, I'm wearing a Yankees jersey right now, and in part of the inspiration behind that was I saw Octane went on stream earlier today and was playing MW 2019 in his Seattle Surge jersey, and and that was a major throwback, and I thought that was funny, but yeah, I mean, end of the day, I just it honestly blows my mind, and I don't have a better way of describing it, that anyone is like trying to say that MW 2019 is actually a good game.
No, it's awful. It was awful at the time. I think people always kind of forget that, like, because the rose tinted glasses, if there's enough time separating you from when it actually happened, you don't actually remember how bad it was back then. I feel that way really about Ghosts because I've absolutely hate that game. I've hated that game since 2013, 2014, especially because it came on the heels of Black Ops 2, which created this competitive revival and resurgence that is, really kind of led us in to where it is today. And Ghost was like a complete, like, if Call of Duty Black Ops 2 took 4 steps forward, like, I guarantee you Ghost took like 3 steps back because they didn't have hardpoint. They didn't have like a third game mode that really could work. They had obviously Blitz, which was just a complete mess. And
I like Blitz. I won't tolerate Blitz slander. I know it's not the best mode, but it was trolly enough and funny enough where I was that guy who would like to lay in a corner. I'd let you run by me and then I'd slide in for a cap.
yeah, I mean it is what it is. But I hate that game. I hate Modern Warfare. I don't, and I think Rickus Morty's asked like when's the last time they made a good game, and my argument would probably be like maybe MW3, but MW3 didn't have like, I'm pretty sure you couldn't play LAN on MW3, so I don't think the competitive community would be too hyped to say MW3. So maybe it's like MW2, and that was like 15, 16 years ago at this point. So they have been on a real long cold streak. Not saying that these other developers are on like a real hot streak either, but they've certainly been a lot more recent in their good game development than IW has, which they have. Like, I mean, I absolutely hate Infinity Ward because they always put out shit games, and I think the fact that MW is kind of popping up the way it is, I think that just kind of proves that none of those games since then have been any good either. So people just kind of remember what they were playing during COVID, because I mean, now all these other Modern Warfare and even Vanguard, like those games had something to it, but they weren't very entertaining either. And that just kind of proves that IW is really bad at this Call of Duty development thing, which is pretty funny to think about considering how long they've been doing it. Yeah, so we should move on though we're actually talking about some CDL stuff. Just real quick, Bush and the Boston Breach. I saw we can move on about that. But
Yeah.
I think the one thing that actually has to do with the major is that Karma said that he still thinks that the Paris Gentlemates, of course, the defending Major 1 champions, are Optic's toughest competition going into Major 2. That's I mean, that it isn't hard to believe, but it is very weird to think about considering Paris barely got into Major 2 as it is. Optic steamrolled their way through the Major 2 qualifiers. And we don't even know if Paris will even make it into the Major 2 bracket. They are in the play-in. They have a very, very good shot of losing in the play-in and not getting that last seed. So what do you think about that idea that despite how bad they've looked, especially over the last 3 weeks, that Paris is still Optic's toughest competition at Major 2?
Yeah, and I would be interested to hear how much everyone else on Optic agrees with that, or if that's just, Damon's perspective on it. But regardless, it is important to remember that they did just play each other in these qualifiers, and it was arguably the first time that Gentlemates looked remotely somewhat similar to their Major 1 form. Obviously, they still weren't at their major winning form in that matchup, but it was the best they had looked in a while in the qualifiers. And I think that just speaks volumes to the potential of that team still, that, despite these struggles, the undisputed best team in the game right now still views them as their toughest competition, potentially. Obviously, again, that's only coming from Karma, so not sure how the guys on the team actually feel about it. But uh regardless, I just think that's a good sort of way to segue into the actual Major 2 preview, in the sense, and you have it in the title as well, is this really feels like this is Optic's major to lose. And Optic versus the field, not a betting man, especially not when it comes to the CDL, but I would be very hard. It would be very hard to convince me to take the field over Optic going into this event, just because, well, at the same time, the field, there are multiple teams in the quote unquote field that wouldn't actually uh, likely be a true contender for the
Mm-hmm.
championship, like Surge, Royal Ravens. I guess you could argue Royal Ravens, but
Probably
um,
not.
yeah, it's it's tough. But obviously, two of those, Surge, Toronto, Royal Ravens, or Gentlemates, two of them potentially aren't even going to be
Yeah.
in the actual bracket for the event, and that would be a massive twist if, Optic views Gentlemates as their toughest competition, and they lose in the playoff match to the play-in match to Carolina and don't even make the main bracket. Then in theory, Optic's potential biggest competitor is eliminated, and they don't even have to worry about playing them at any point. So, um, in that scenario, that only further increases Optic's odds of potentially winning this tournament. But I definitely think that it's interesting to hear Karma say that, but I'm not necessarily totally surprised, just given the way that these qualifiers unfolded. Nobody has really stood out as that quote unquote second team, let alone, we've always talked in recent years about a top three or a power four, however you want to phrase it. Right now, it is Optic S tier, everyone else in BC tier or below. And I think that is, as an Optic fan, you are probably excited about that. It is also potentially super dangerous, because if Optic falls flat at this major and doesn't win it, then we get into some weird conversations of how did this team go from looking so dominant in the qualifiers to not capturing a championship when it looked like it was just going to be a breeze. And I don't expect, I mean, I will just throw this out there. Last year, the first major of the year was in Barcelona, and one of the excuses that was used by people around the Optic camp and stuff was the jet lag and the travel and stuff like that. Obviously, Major 1, there was much more going on for Optic, and it didn't go their way, but that is a concern that you have to have for these guys, especially since there haven't been a ton of recent experience for some of these people, traveling to the UK. And in some cases, like Merck, you got to assume this is going to be his first time going to Europe, I would assume. Other people in the CDL, not on Optic and stuff, but other newer players have probably never played on a LAN match in Europe. So I just, that is something I don't know how much stock anyone would really care to put into that, but it is something that just came to mind for me. But yeah, I mean, overall, it is. It feels like to me, 100%. This is Optic's event to lose. They have everything like in front of them to just be like, if we go out and play our game the way we played in Major Two, it doesn't matter who's on the other side of the stage, we should stomp them. And if anything less than that happens for Optic, I'm not sure what the deal will be.
Yeah, I just can't see, if they're going to lose to any of these teams, I just really don't know who that's going to be. Like that's the craziest part is like there's not one team out there, even though we just saw Optic lose the Falcons last week. There's not one team in this field that I feel even remotely confident could actually beat Optic at this current point in time with how inconsistent we have seen these other teams play, how consistently we've seen Optic play. Those things just don't really match up to me. It doesn't seem like that should be possible, but we've seen it before where Optic just kind of has a letdown on LAN. They didn't at Major 1, they had the letdown before LAN, so maybe they figured some things out. But I just don't see any team really even rising to the occasion against them, unless there's kind of like a FaZe just goes on a big run, or LAT kind of figure things out. Paris would, they have to win one more match than everybody else, regardless. So yeah, I just don't, I don't think that Paris is the hardest team or the toughest competition for Optic. I disagree with Karma on that. I'd probably say that's like FaZe, most likely, because they have, I mean, I think just the fact that FaZe actually has looked somewhat decent recently and has been able to win some matches, I would probably bet on them to beat Optic over Paris, who I'm really not sure if they will be able to beat Carolina in that first match. So that's a pretty big leap to go from barely beating the Ravens, who got smoked at Major 1 and have looked pretty up and down since then, to potentially beating Optic, who went 10-1 in the qualifiers. But that's why we have this prediction show, I guess. We should talk about the play-in matches before we get into anything. Anything else before we do that?
I just want to correct myself on the UK travel thing and stuff, because obviously I forgot about EWC at the end of last year, and so obviously like Merck traveled to Saudi Arabia, so it's a I don't know the exact time for flight times and stuff like that comparatively between the two events, but that was an omission on my part. Rickus Morty in the YouTube chat did mention though that apparently there was discussions amongst Optic and Paige, who I don't know her exact role, but she's basically like the manager, she's not the GM, but I don't know what her team director or something along those lines of the travel was a talking point after the first event last year in Barcelona for Optic. So regardless, it is potentially something there, but I did want to correct myself on that point, which for a lot of these players, especially those who competed at EWC last year, that they will have had experience of a lengthy travel day across the country.
Yeah, so let's start Friday, March 27th. Of course, this major is condensed to 3 days, not 4. So I don't know how that will change, because we haven't had a ton of 3-day events in the CDL era. But it's going to be Friday through Sunday. Going to be in Birmingham, England at DreamHack. So it's going to be a different environment than I think a lot of these teams are used to, at least with the CDL. Maybe it's more akin to the Esports World Cup, where there's so much else going on. It's not just focused on the COD event. But regardless, we have these 2 play-in matches. So we have the 7, 8, 9, and 10 seeds from the Major 2 qualifiers. They are competing for 2 spots in the bracket, in the 8-team double elimination bracket. First up, I think we have to talk about Carolina versus Gentlemates, because this is, to me, way more interesting of a match. And because we talked about with Carolina going into Major 1, were they a contender? They proved unequivocally that they were not a contender, and they got double first rounded at Major 1. They've been way more consistent than the Paris Gentlemaids in the Major 2 qualifiers, but I would say that is quite a low bar to surpass, because Paris has, I believe, lost 7 of their last 8 matches. They've only been able to beat the Boston Breach, who are not at Major 2, in the last month or so. Carolina has had their moments, but is still pretty hit or miss in general. Paris, and I should say that we talked about it on the last episode, but Paris looked better in their final week of the qualifiers. They went to 2 Game 5s. They lost both of those Game 5s. The S&D did leave, I think, a little bit to be desired, and just in general, them not winning would leave you to probably desire a little bit more from them. But who do you kind of favor in this kind of matchup? I kind of have a feeling where you're going, but I guess it's good to get your official word.
Yeah, I got to go with Gentlemates here. I mean, Rickus Morty's dropping some intel in the YouTube chat that I didn't know or see. Apparently, the Gentlemates guys have lost their luggage ahead of this event. And if that's true, that's like the ultimate red flag to me in terms of like just like shit piling on top of shit going wrong for them in in recent weeks. So hopefully they aren't just fully checked out if that is the case. But outside of external factors like that, I've been vocal about picking against Carolina. This is kind of the perfect storm though for me, and just in terms of like, Carolina getting an opportunity to play against a Gentlemates team that has question marks around which form they're going to be in this particular match. At the same time, though, we saw people making the jokes about the Carolina Royal Routers and the onliners and all that stuff, and they haven't won on land this year. I know obviously it's a small sample size and they only had 2 opportunities, but I gotta trust, especially Sib. Like I think Sib played pretty well at points in these online qualifiers, but especially the difference between the Major 1 qualifiers and Major 1 on land. He picked it up a notch and played very well on land. So, accounting for that and expecting him to show up on land once again, I think that pushes Gentlemates over the edge. And, you know, I still just am not totally convinced by what I've seen from Carolina, but I have been vocal about enjoying what I've seen from Lurks recently, so I will like to see what he has in store in this other opportunity to showcase his abilities on land. I just think it's a really, like, no matter who loses this match, we either have defending Major 1 champions bounce with a last place finish at Major 2, or Carolina have what did they end up in these qualifiers? Was it they had more than 5 wins, I think, right?
I think they had 5.
I gotta go.
Or no, I think they might have had 6.
6 and 5.
Yeah.
So they're 5 and 2 Major 1 qualifiers bounce last place, and then 6 and 5 Major 2 qualifiers bounce last place. Like, either way, it's an interesting narrative that we'll be able to talk about post event. Obviously, I think if Gentlemates lose, it is more shocking, and there's even more to discuss, because I do think there are roster move implications to be had there. But I definitely think Gentlemates. I mean, they have to win this match if they want to continue to play as this current roster.
Yeah, I think there's some pretty interesting storylines, like you said. Also, a part of this is that Carolina is the 7th seed, and them getting knocked out like without a double elimination. I mentioned it last time.
Yeah.
In any other major, they would get a second shot at it. Not saying that they would necessarily do anything with that, because we saw what happened at Major 1, but for them to get 7th in the qualifiers, then fly a few thousand miles to England, and then get first rounded, maybe they lose in 3 maps, we don't know, and then they just fly right back home, is one of the most depressing things that I can imagine in the CDL. So they definitely have quite a bit riding, as all 4 of these teams do on these matches. Without the names, if you just said like we'll give you the results of one team and the results of another, I would almost certainly pick Carolina in this match, because I feel like they've just been more consistent. Paris, like, it's very worrying for any team to go into a major on as low of a note as they are currently. Like that, it's kind of akin to what Optic went through in the Major One qualifiers. But and even then, like I had a lot of skepticism around Optic and what they were going to be able to do when they actually got to LAN, and they proved me wrong, of course. But I don't. I don't have a lot of confidence that Paris is actually going to be able to turn it around. I'm still going to pick Paris because they're the much more talented team. We have seen them at their peak and at their at the best that they can be, at least that we've seen. And maybe they're able to get better, but yeah, like the luggage, I think that's a bad omen. That's basically like, hey,
I
hopefully it's back in LA or Texas or wherever they are, and hopefully it's there to meet you when you get back.
who was it? I think it was New York for. It was the Boston event that I went to, and it was New York, and they lost to Bance, but I can't remember if it's when Bance was on Toronto or Minnesota. I think it was Minnesota because Minnesota got third place at the Boston event, the last Boston event that I went to. But there was something along those lines of like, I'm pretty sure it was New York, and that made me think it might have been Sib, but I think that was before Sib was on the team. Um, but I mean, we've seen it before. There was that snowstorm or like ice situation in Texas, like before one
Mm-hmm.
of those events. I think it was that Boston event. And like teams were like worried about even getting to
Yeah.
the tournament and
I
stuff.
remember
So we've
people
seen
like, I'm
stuff
gonna
like that
drive
before.
to Boston to from Texas. So like, good luck, buddy. Like that's a crazy drive. But yeah, I mean, it's weird, I'm sure, for everybody. I hope that the jet lag is not an issue. If it is, like your team should have flown you out like a day sooner just to kind of get used to everything, and so you get like a full night's sleep or all that. The only thing with this match that I think it's more interesting with this match than some of the other ones is how the crowd will react to these two teams in particular. Obviously, Paris is the
True.
only European organization. They don't have European players, but they are owned by Gotaga, and he is the most popular French player of all time, one of the most popular European players of all time. And we saw at that Spanish major that you were talking about, when Paris played, despite only having one French player, I believe, they were incredibly popular because there were French fans that went down to Spain and were like, let's support our boys. And that team sucked, so I don't really know how they'll react to potentially a good team despite it being kind of a similar situation. So I wonder on that regard about like if French fans will support Paris the same way, considering there aren't any French players, and how that kind of works. And also, Carolina, of course, used to be the London Royal Ravens. They used to be the only English team. They abandoned the Queen, or I guess the King now, and they went to America and became the Carolina Royal Ravens. I do wonder if the English crowd will give them a little bit of shit just for that. I think more poking fun at them, but I do wonder if the crowd will play a factor at all in this match. I don't know if how much it'll do in the other matches, like at least as part of like partisan. I'm sure when Optics on the stage or LAT phase, like the crowd will be crazy, but I don't know if there'll be like as partisan as they have been in past years. Like when Tommy was still in the league, I saw somebody tweet it out like, and he's kind of like playing to the crowd and he's able to get the crowd on his side. There's not as much of that as it used to be because they're all kind of spread out. We don't have like an
Yeah.
all English team or anything like we used
Yeah.
to.
Well, that's I was gonna. We can segue in unless you have anything else
No.
on the Carolina Gentlemates match, but just thinking about it, I mean, depending on what the like relationship is there with in terms of the heretics, because obviously they have three Spanish players, but I would assume Toronto would be the team that has like the most UK support just because of Insight and Kleenex. I know Kleenex is from
Denmark.
uh yeah, I wasn't gonna say Denmark. I think I was gonna say Switzerland, so good save there. Um but um just looking at the list too, like you got the Heretics guys, obviously Hydra from France, um, Kleenex and Insight on Koi, and then the one I wasn't really thinking about is Abuza.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's something that helps FaZe in this tournament if the European crowd gets behind Abuza a little bit and shows him some love, that could be interesting. But in terms of this other play-in match with Toronto and Surge, I wasn't even really thinking about it from a fan perspective until you just had that conversation. So I think I'm really excited for that match now to see if the crowd rallies behind Insight in particular, but also Kleenex.
Yeah, I mean that would be crazy to. I mean, he's one of the few English players that we have in the league, which is very weird to actually think about. Like it used
Yeah.
to be a very large portion of the CDL. At least, there were the Americans and Canadians, and then there were the English that kind of dominated. But we've, I guess, globalized in a way. I mean, we have a lot of Spanish players
Yeah.
suddenly, but yeah, I think the crowd is going to be a point of focus regardless because there's been so much made of the English crowds historically. And I guess lesser to a extent just the European crowds, but I think the English crowds have gotten more attention. And I think that there's good reason in that they chant a lot more. I don't want to say sophisticated because that's not the right word, but more
No.
elaborate chants than just like "Let's go Optic," "Let's go Phase" or whatever. Like there are more like obviously they're based in soccer club chants, so maybe there is something kind of entertaining about that. I like it. I just like that the crowd is involved to a further extent than "Let's go Optic." That is like the only chant that is basically known to the majority of North American Call of Duty fans. So I think that's interesting. But yeah, I didn't even really think about the Insight thing and that he
Yeah.
specifically might get singled out in a good way and help his team. I also we obviously don't know the setup that DreamHack is employing with this major because if you think about like not this past champs, but two no was it this past champs where they were in Texas and they had like the big ring basically that they were in the middle of the arena and I think that was the one that Optic hosted.
Yeah, that's
Um,
how they did it for Major One too. Like
yes,
facing each other, you mean?
so I think that is really that can be more intense than if you're on a stage and you don't have anybody behind you or on to your side, they're all in front of you. So I think if it's kind of like a pit style, which is my preferred way of having COD events, I think every esports event honestly should have like a pit style where the players are in the middle and everybody crowds around them because it puts so much more pressure on them. The fans are more of a part of it. But yeah, I guess we'll have to see what happens with the DreamHack setup and how that kind of plays out. But let's talk about the Toronto and Vancouver matchup because that's the other play-in match. So the first one, we should say Carolina and Paris. The winner plays Miami in round one. The winner between Toronto and Vancouver gets the unfortunate first round matchup against Optic. Uh, Optic obviously went to the grand finals. They just swept their way through the winners bracket last time at Major One. Who do you see coming out in this play-in between Toronto and Vancouver?
I gotta go with Toronto, and I had Toronto before even thinking about the crowd aspect of it. I think now even more so. Like, I think that helps Toronto even more. The biggest thing with me for this match though is I'm just really excited to see what Kips can do on land because obviously I've spoken pretty highly of him so far in his limited CDL run here. I think it should be 9 matches he played because I think he came in after week 1 for Toronto. So still only 9 online matches we've seen from him, but I do think he's performed pretty well in that limited sample size, and I just want to see what he can do on land. I mean, we've historically seen these other rookies who have had these breakout performances online, and then in some instances they carry over to land, and in other situations they don't. So I'm interested to see uh, where Kips falls in that. I do think I want to temper my expectations a little bit just in case Toronto loses. I think that would look uh, worse than it possibly would be just in terms of like if Toronto lose this match and we only get to see one map match out of Kips on land, I'm not gonna be super critical of him even if he has like a point 0.5 KD, which I just don't see happening. But just for sake of the example here, like it would still, even if he has the worst series of his life in this first land match in the CDL. Like it's still only one land match, and there presumably should be many more to come after that. But I just think since Kips has joined Coy, they've been a much better team. And although Vancouver has had a little late resurgence, no pun intended, they have some people probably a little more confused because of the Falcons. They beat Falcons after Falcons beat OPTIC, which in theory, if Vancouver beats Toronto here, then we get Toronto or Vancouver versus OPTIC, and again, that whole like, Falcons or Surge beat Falcons, Falcon beats OPTIC, so Surge beat OPTIC. Like that'd be pretty funny if it actually happened. I wouldn't bet on it again. Like I'm not betting on any of that, but yeah, I just think Toronto's the better team at this point, and they should win. It is worth mentioning on the Vancouver side of things as well. Lunar played extremely well at Major 1, carried that over individually into parts of the Major 2 qualifier, so I will be interested to see how he performs at his second land. But I think just in terms of uh, the league as a whole right now, like either way, I've been excited about watching Kips play, and I've been excited about watching Lunars play, and the unfortunate reality is I only get to watch 3 to 5 maps of one of those guys at Major 2 no matter what.
I think it'll be Toronto. I think it's a lot more disappointing for Toronto if they don't make it than if Vancouver doesn't make it, because when you have Jodeci's and Kleenex on your team and you don't even make it into the major, like the actual bracket, then that's just going to be a really big blow to this team. And especially considering their preseason expectations, I'm sure we're closer to competing for major championships rather than getting knocked out at like the 9-10th spot. So Toronto definitely should win just by the talent level that is on that team. But we just saw Toronto underperform several times during these Major 2 qualifiers, even after that strong start that they had with Kips. So I'm worried for Coy in that, but I'm going to go with Toronto regardless.
I will say I am not going to personally root for this, but if anyone did root for it, I wouldn't blame them. In a scenario where Gentlemates and Toronto both lose this play-in match, that could be that could set the stage for a very interesting roster mania period ahead of the Major 3 qualifiers, where specifically if Toronto and Gentlemates both lose, I could see Gentlemates trying to get Joe from Toronto to replace Envoy. And I think that would cause some major dominoes to fall, obviously, in the league. And I only think that happens if both of these teams lose their play-in matches. So again, I'm not going to root for that, and I'm not picking it, obviously. But if anyone is a fan of chaos and roster mania shenanigans and they want to root for it, I wouldn't blame them.
Next up, let's talk about FaZe versus LAT. So we know that this match is happening. We don't know some of these other matches, of course. Yeah. We don't know who's going to play OPTIC and who's going to play Miami. But we do know that these two rivals, I think, is pretty clearly, that's clear to say. They play each other in round 1. Neither one of them have had the season that they likely thought they would coming into the year. LAT, of course, really disappointed at Major 1. They drop Kenny. They bring in Niam. I think he's been pretty solid overall. The team around him has been not as solid as you would certainly expect of 3 former MVP caliber players and 3 former world championship contenders, and a team like LAT, you would just expect there to be a lot more consistency. That has not been the case. FaZe has kind of been in the same boat. They did have that stretch during the Major 1 qualifiers that we talked about. Like, there was a time for maybe 1 or 2 weeks that they were the best team in the world. It was no debate because they had just beaten all these really, really good teams, the top teams that we expected to be there. And Major 1, they lose again to G2. They do make a big run through the losers bracket, but they fall short. Major 2 qualifiers, they have looked even more inconsistent, at least until a point. We even talked about the idea that they could actually miss Major 2. It was between basically C9, Paris, Boston, and FaZe. Those were like the 4 teams that seemed to be like really in the danger zone heading into those final few weeks of the qualifiers. Fortunately for FaZe, they were able to pull out of that. They were able to make it into Major 2 and in a decent seed, I guess, all things considered. The win that kind of kickstarted their little run that they had to end the Major 2 qualifiers, coincidentally, was against LAT. They beat the Thieves in Game 5 back on March 6th, which was, I think, during the 4th week of the qualifiers. Then they lose to OPTIC, but then they finish out with 3 straight wins against Carolina, Paris, and C9. Of course, some of those teams were not the best teams or anything, but I think it is fair to say that finishing with 4 out of 5 wins is pretty good. And then on the other side, you have LAT. Like we said, they've looked kind of up and down with their roster, but they also finished with 3 wins of their last 4 qualifying matches. Their only loss was to Falcons. I mean, who amongst us, I guess. But they beat Paris, Minnesota, and C9. I think this is a really interesting match. Personally, the most intriguing and most exciting match of round 1 to me. Who do you have between the Thieves and FaZe Vegas?
I went back and forth a little bit on this before putting my pick in the notes, but I'm gonna go with FaZe. Um, we saw, Simp have success against his former team on LAN already earlier this year. I just think both teams have been, I think, inconsistent is fair to say in terms of their performance in the Major 2 qualifiers. It's just been very spotty, and it's inconsistent. You don't know which version of the either team is going to show up at either point. So I could definitely see either team taking this. I do think it is. Similar to my point about Kips, this is going to be Niam's first opportunity to showcase his abilities on LAN. I still think it's a little different for him just because of how vocal I've been about my viewpoint on the philosophy or the approach that LAT should have, and what it should look like when LAT wins a match. Like, LAT could very easily win this first round matchup, and Niam could have a .8, and there'll be people being like, oh, Niam needs to get dropped or whatever. But like, if they win and he was doing his thing in the comms, and that's obviously hard for people on the outside to understand, it might not necessarily the stat. That's why we always say the stats don't tell everything, or the stats don't paint the full picture. So um I'm gonna go with FaZe, especially the S&D. I think it is worth mentioning that the late tweak here recently, as recent as this past week, with LAT swapping to the sniper and sending Abizi and Hydra on routes together as that SMG duo, and potentially unlocking some new strats, because that could be um, something that benefits LAT in terms of their S&D performance at this major. But I'll go with FaZe. It's been a while since I've been able to pick FaZe with any sort of confidence, and I still am not fully confident in this pick here. But at the end of the day, I think this is definitely the match I'm looking forward to the most in the first round.
I'm also going to go with FaZe. This is a pretty hard one, but like you, I think it comes down to the S&D. I'm pretty skeptical that FaZe is going to be able to win that opening hard point. LAT's been better in that game mode this season, more consistent than FaZe has. So you're probably going to go to at least map 4. I think that if it goes 5, that FaZe will be able to pull it out. But yeah, I don't have a lot of confidence either way with these teams. I do think that they are the 2 best contenders to OPTIC at this event, but that's not saying a whole lot, just considering the rest of the field has pretty much been really flat or just outright confusing, especially recently. And I tend to lean a lot on those last few weeks of the qualifiers in any major, just because that's what we saw last of them, and I do think that momentum plays a factor, especially at times. But we'll see if it plays a factor in either way here, because FaZe, like I said, and LAT have they finished very, very strong in those final few weeks of the qualifiers. But yeah, I will go with FaZe, and I think that they'll move on to round 2, which would set up a potential double first round for LAT, depending on what happens in the losers bracket, which would be, I guess, less than ideal for LAT.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You're not in Discord anymore, so I wanted to make sure the recording didn't get messed up or whatever.
Oh, no. I can hear you loud and clear.
All right. Is the recording good?
Yep.
All right. I don't know what happened.
I don't know. I feel like we're having Discord issues the last few weeks or last week or so.
Does it show you in Discord?
Let me check. Yep.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. We'll move through it as long as we can.
As long as the recording works, I don't care.
Next up, we should talk about G2 versus the Falcons. Another match that we actually know is happening. We don't know what's going to happen in this match though, because G2 and Riyadh have been very, like, I keep saying hit or miss, but these two teams probably explain that the best, because we just saw Falcons beat OPTIC. They were the only team to beat OPTIC in the Major 2 qualifiers, and then they lose to the Vancouver Surge, who are in the play-in. They have only beaten the very, very bottom teams this season, so it doesn't really make a ton of sense. G2 has beaten FaZe multiple times. They've been very competitive against some of the top teams, and yet they tend to lose a lot of matches that we think that they should or definitely could win, and they're in this position where I don't know if they are able to really go any higher than they are currently, and that's kind of like the middle of the pack that we talked about on the last episode. I will personally go with the Falcons in this match just because I think they're more talented than G2, and that kind of is like really the only reason. G2, of course, has been competitive with OPTIC, but Falcons actually beat OPTIC, so I'm going to go with the Falcons in this match. Well, I do not know what just happened there. I think I'm still live, so I'll just hang on until Discord comes back up for me. But it's on just the did you know? I don't know if it's updating or something or what it is. I'm going to restart Discord just to see if that'll fix it. I think I don't know. I don't really know if it's going to start. Come on. I feel like Discord went down, server status. It says that it's up, but I don't believe them. So gonna wait it out a little bit just to see if Discord will come back for either one of us. Bink said that it's not working for him either, so I mean that would explain why just a few minutes ago he said that I wasn't in Discord, and when I was, we went a good bit without having any real issues with internet or Discord or anything. You know, we had like here and there, but nothing that would actually interrupt the show like this. I'm gonna I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick while we're waiting. Right. Still not back, it seems, which is always cool. All right. Let's look on Twitter, see if people are saying the same thing about Discord. Discord. Yeah, it seems like Discord is messing up for other people. So, not just us, fortunately or unfortunately. I don't know what that really. I don't know if that would be good for us. All right. Is there another way we could just finish it at least? Do not know, to be honest. Do I have Zoom on this? Yeah, we might be able to do it over Zoom. I've not logged on to Zoom in a good 6 years, so that's always gonna be fun. Yeah, I do have to leave in probably like half an hour. Check this. Yeah. Discord said issues connecting to Discord. We're aware of an issue that's preventing people from connecting. We're actively investigating. That was 1 minute ago. Hopefully that will get fixed. In the meantime, we are going to try to finish this on Zoom, which should be fun. Zoom. I don't know how it'll look or anything because this is set up for Discord and not Zoom, but we'll try. Zoom is installing updates, so. Oh my. Create account. Open Zoom meetings. All right, so I will. Start a chat. Home. New meeting. Join with. So then I have to share it, right? Or no, invite, copy invite link, Twitter. I feel like the video is gonna be absolutely fucking butt cheeks on this. What's up? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I can hear you too. So
Actually, sounds kind of better.
let's see if I can make you pop out so I can record your screen easier.
Ooh, I went to check the YouTube stream and it did a picture-in-picture thing that I just have your old profile picture showing.
What's that? Oh. Yeah.
You with the backpack on, that used to be your Slack profile picture for years.
Yeah.
Like it's just sitting in the bottom right corner of my screen now while I got on the YouTube in solo mode.
Okay. I'm trying to see if I can pin. Yeah, that may be it.
I know you gotta go. If we got it, like, there be a way for you to just like do the half screen of like the half screen we usually have, and you just take a screenshot of me from earlier in the show, just on that left side, and then we do recording.
I should have it real quick. Just.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say that if worst case scenario, I think that's probably the easiest thing to do if it's possible.
Window capture. Let's see if that actually works. Also, Discord came back up too. I just opened it.
Yeah, I was to open it, but I can't connect to a call or do my camera.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it says awaiting endpoint when I do a recording podcast. I think I sound better on the stream in Zoom too.
That's.
I had to make a new account because the other Zoom that I was signed into was my gamer's email. LOL.
Yeah. Yeah, they kicked me out of mine like fucking 10 minutes after they fired me, so that was nice.
Yeah, I mean me too, but I'm just saying like
Yeah.
I haven't used Zoom in forever, so like I just went to Zoom, tried to sign in, and it was like, we sent the passcode to justin.b@gamers.com, and I'm like, well, not gonna get that.
What the fuck? So.
Recording in progress.
What the fuck?
I don't even know if it'll work or not, because when I tried to put it in OBS, it doesn't. It doesn't like. It just shows like a white screen, and I don't know why my mic is peaking as fucking bad it is. Jesus Christ. Yeah, like it doesn't even show like you when I try to record it on OBS. It just has like a big ass white screen. God damn it, man.
Maybe for just the sake of the video, it's just a solo view of you and just yapping, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we could try Discord one more time just to see. If not, then we can.
I just checked when you said it was there and still not doing shit.
Okay.
Like I can. Oh wait, it
Hold
says
on.
you're in there.
Yeah, it says a waiting endpoint. Like,
Yeah, that's what I've been getting.
okay.
And then I hit turn on camera, and it just does like the two squares in a circle, and then at the end it says like try again or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, it could just be like an audio. Like people would just look at me while you're talking, but at least it'd have like the audio and all that.
Or you can pull up a picture of me.
Like close out of Discord real quick.
Yeah.
Because that's gonna slow down my computer. What picture would you like?
I don't give two shits. See if I have a funny one. If you wanted to be real funny, you could do the one of me getting pied in the face after baseball.
I know I was looking for that one, but on the spirit of opening day, we'll get a baseball picture in here.
That's fine.
Just blurry ass photo. Open image, new tab, save image.
All Lauren's fault, because if we did this earlier in the day, it wouldn't have mattered. We
True.
got through it.
True. I'll make sure to tell her that. Yeah, this is some bullshit. Properties, browse. Got the picture. Blow that shit up. This is harder than it looks. Jesus Christ.
At least you're getting some good ad revenue
Yeah.
out of this. I realized the other day, me subscribing with don't get ads anymore, so that means you're getting less revenue from when I like just watch the stream. See you, so just balances out.
Yeah. Jesus Christ, man.
It's an issue. Let's just do the recording and you. I don't really care. I was just trying to get something that we could do in the moment.
Nah, this should be fine. I got it. I was being a fucking idiot. As usual. Alright. Why is my mic peaking so fucking bad? Let's get out of this. We'll have to just make sure like we test it before, just to make sure it sounds alright.
Test what?
Like test on like just check on YouTube
Oh,
or
you sound
Twitch.
fine right now.
Okay.
I heard you earlier when you said the peaking stuff.
Okay.
That time when you just said it, that time I didn't. So, but when we got that weird ass message of it being recorded or whatever, and you sounded fucking crazy there.
Okay.
Like that. Oh, bam! Look at that.
So why is the mic just it's going crazy? Because it doesn't normally do this, but maybe it's just because it's on Zoom. It's like Zoom's like trying to take it over or something. Because it like just shows on like the OBS that it'll go all the way to the red on just like a normal sentence, and then it's like really quiet now, but then I don't know what's going on. So I just
That entire time you were talking there on the YouTube stream, it sounds fine.
okay. Something's going on though. It's definitely Zoom because like I have a noise gate on, so it should
Yeah.
after I get done talking should just be completely silent on my mic. But because Zoom, because I'm on Zoom, it's like just staying there afterward. Like it'll stay kind of like in the lower like fifth of it. So it's like it's picking up stuff that it shouldn't be picking up, which is very very annoying. Let me know when it is like in the silent portion of the stream if it's picking up anything like on my mic. If the mic sounds fine generally.
I hear like a fan or something, but it's just like
Yeah. I guess we'll just deal with it. It's
yeah. I think that's the only thing that sounds like a fan or something in the background.
okay. So I made my pick for G2 Falcons, and then
Okay.
you could just pick up and
Yeah. What'd you?
I said
Just so
I said Falcons.
no, but like, what do you say about the match? I heard you pick Falcons.
Oh, I mean it. Honestly, if you just want to like say like, you can just go on your sentence and then I can cut in something else.
I just want to make sure I wasn't repeating you, but
Oh no, I just said that Falcons has a more talented roster, I think, and that was it.
okay. All right. 3-2. So for me with this Falcons G match, I think the thing I'm most looking forward to with this is I kind of similar to Phase 100 or Phase in the sense of which one of G2 shows up, which versions of Falcon shows up. I think the the Falcons beat Optic and have the opportunity if Optic and Falcons both win to get a rematch and land again. That's interesting. That would like kind of especially with all the uh chatter and whatnot around the lag and when they played online, like that getting that probably be something Green supporters would want to see. I think I could see either team really winning this match, but I will go with Falcons as well. And I think you know there have been instances this season where I've felt confident in Minnesota and then they fall flat. There's other chances where I kind of just write them off and then they prove me wrong. So really, too inconsistent out of Minnesota to want to pick them in this match. I think I would feel much better about Falcons heading into this. They didn't have that sort of there to Vancouver after Optic, but just knowing that Falcons are the only team to beat Optic in this Major 2 cycle, that makes me want to see another matchup between them on land. So I'm going with Falcons because of that.
Recording stopped.
I just stopped that recording real quick just so I 132. Okay. Let's move on to do you want to do the picks for the teams that the matches that we don't know are actually going to take place? Or do you want to hold off on Miami, Carolina, or Gentlemates, and then also Optic versus Toronto/Vancouver?
Wait, so what's going on? The recording's done?
No, I just took it off the Zoom recording because I don't need it at this point. Like I can just record the audio. I only recorded it when I was like recording your screen, but it's just going to be a huge hassle to try to get like the video recording to go into like this recording that I'm doing on the other side. So it's fine.
The only reason I want to ask is because you just talked right at the start there. After I talked, it was really bad.
It's a little laggy. Like if you listen to the stream, it's like I don't know, like part of it will cut out and then like but most of it will be heard. I don't know what the solution is there, honestly.
All right. I think we just skip this other stuff and give our winners and stuff and get out of here because this is gonna be a mess otherwise.
Okay, so yeah.
We can just say. I mean, I'm assuming you're gonna pick Optic versus either of the teams, and then Miami versus
Yeah, let's
either of
just
those,
skip it and then
right?
we'll
So let's just say, and then
okay.
Our overall winners.
Yeah, we're probably both going to go with Optic and Miami, regardless of who comes out of those play-in bracket matches. I guess if there's something major that happens during those play-in matches, we might be able to change our opinion before then. But at this point, I think we're both going to go with the two higher seeds, and then really it's just kind of unpredictable. I think who gets to face Optic in the grand finals is really probably the biggest question of this tournament. I have no idea who that's going to be. I think we're both probably going to pick Optic as the winners. Is that correct?
Yeah, I went with Optic. I'm assuming you too.
Yeah, definitely going to pick Optic Texas as the champions of Major 2. I guess I don't know if there really is a dark horse. I don't know how applicable that is, but so who do you think actually makes it to the grand finals and plays Optic and loses to Optic in the grand finals? Maybe that's a better question.
Yeah, I like that. I put down in the notes who would the dark be, and I put down, but you can't pick Optic, LAT, or Gentlemates, and it feels weird to be like, oh, the seed can't be picked as a dark horse, but I guess that just is one way of summing up the Major 2 qualifiers and the chaos that dude. But I think I gotta go with Hawkins in terms of a potential dark horse, again, similar to saying for that G2 Falcons match, in terms of them being the only team to actually beat Optic. They can do it regardless of the outside circumstances. But in terms of reaching the final, I mean, that if Gentlemates beats Carolina, the bottom 4 bracket is absolutely nutty with LAT, FaZe, Miami, and Gentlemates. I think whoever wins out of that quadrant and gets to face Optic in the winners finals would, in theory, be a little battle tested at this tournament than just in the sense of the strength of opponent they're playing against. I don't really have a solid answer for who I think will play in the grand finals. I do. I mean, just because we haven't talked about them a lot on this particular, Miami have looked strong, but that is a really tough bracket for them to potentially play Gentlemates and FaZe or AT just for a shot for us to get to a chance to see Optic versus Miami. Um, I could see one of these teams, and just because I is over LAT, like if LAT drop down to Luke and they go on a lower bracket run to get grand finals, they catch some fire and get hot down the bracket. I think that feels a little more likely to me, regardless of which team it is, and like somebody losing to Optic in the winners finals and getting to rematch them in the grand finals. I mean, obviously that did happen at one with Gentlemates, but um like some team might sort of like separate them from the pack, even if they lose early, drop down to lower, and then they beat up on some of these lower teams and are able to catch a little fire and some momentum. But I'll go with FaZe. I do think the aspect of Abuza potentially being a EU crowd favorite in some of these matches, that could be interesting to see if that plays out. But obviously Optic versus is an exciting match, and I want to see it. I wanted to see it last major in the finals, and a couple net miracle 1v3, 1v4 clutches prevented us from doing that. So let Optic versus FaZe in this finals. Why not?
Yeah, that's what I also had. I think that if I had to order it, would be Optic 1, FaZe 2, and LAT 3. Not necessarily like what they're going to place, but like the most likely to win. I think LAT, maybe they really have turned a bit of a corner in these past few weeks, and they would be able to carry that into Major 2. But I think that FaZe has the talent to win, that they've looked relatively good recently. Miami has also looked really good, but I still, I have to be more convinced of them. And maybe they prove that at Major 2, and I am proven wrong. But at this point, I just need to see a little bit more from Miami, especially on land. It would help to kind of combine what we saw in the Major 2 qualifiers and how well they seem to do online. I need them to pair it together at Major 2 for me to give them they probably otherwise would be kind of in this spot, because I was open to picking Miami a lot last year as kind of a deep contender, but obviously that hasn't really panned out so far this season. So I'm going to go with FaZe as the grand finalist with OPTIC. Of course, Draza has a great record against OPTIC in his career. So maybe that comes into play if they do meet in the Major 2 grand finals. But I believe that FaZe will get second at this tournament. I agree with you, though, that Falcons has like a really good shot of just making a run. They have a lot of talent, which that is undeniable. They just have not been able to put it together this season on a consistent basis. Like even with this last week of the qualifiers, we saw them at their higher end and beating OPTIC, but also losing to Vancouver. And that has really been the Falcons' experience this season. But that also can bode well for just a one weekend run. You know, if you're hot enough to go for 3 or 4 wins, like that could get you a high placing, maybe even win you a major championship. So I agree with you on that point as well. LAT definitely has to be in the conversation, but I mean, they did not really show up to Major 1, so they can't be in too much of the conversation, I should say. Yeah, I think that about does it. I think MVP, if OPTIC's going to win, I think we're both probably on the Merc train. I mean, he was our regular season MVP. I would assume that he's going to be our Major 2 MVP as well. Is that correct?
I put in the notes, if you picked Merc, I was going to pick Hook, just because I was mentioning it in previous episodes that I think Hook has been the best player in OPTIC in the Major 2 qualifiers, just independent of themselves and not counting the season as a whole. I don't think you can go wrong with any of them.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, any of those 4 OPTIC players could get MVP very easily and very realistically if they end up winning the championship this weekend. Pick 'em so far this season. You are 78-48. You went 41-25 in the Major 2 qualifiers. I am 80-46, so I have a 2-match lead. Part of that is I had one more win in the Major 2 qualifiers and went 42-24. So not much separation between us as we get to the LAN.
I don't usually do that. I went through the notes because I was bored and I wanted to see what the difference was in the Major 2 qualifiers because I thought it was going to be bigger, but I was surprised it was only 1 match difference.
I feel like it was decently big after you were on your anti-Carolina phase,
Yeah.
and then, but I'm pretty sure you made it up like 1 match at a time because you were basically just doing 1 match better than me for like 3 or 4 straight weeks. So we're almost back to even, and we could be even, or you could be in the lead by the end of this weekend. I think that about does it for us. We sincerely apologize for the technical difficulties. Actually, not our fault. For one of the first times in Ego Chall podcast history, we've had internet issues and computer issues and all of that over the years, but this time it was straight up Discord's fault. Discord crashed, I think, globally. We were like 70, 80 minutes into the podcast. And so obviously this is not the setup that we typically have. We typically don't have Bink in his college baseball uniform throwing a pitch and doing this on Zoom. So we apologize if there are any audio mishaps. And obviously the video is pretty much just me right now talking to the camera. But we apologize for that. Hopefully Discord will fix their shit and give us a cash settlement for the horrible things that they've done to us over the past half hour. But we appreciate you tuning in nonetheless. We hope that you guys got something out of this preview, of course. We hope you enjoyed it. Please like, subscribe, follow the podcast feed wherever you're listening or watching on. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, as well as YouTube. I think we're at 290 or above 290 subscribers on YouTube. I saw some guy on YouTube comment on, I think, our last video, and he asked if we were going to do like daily podcasts for each major day, so Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night. The answer is no, we are not doing that. Hopefully at some point we do get to that point, but I work on Friday night, and who knows what happens on like Saturday. I may go out on a date with Lauren or something on Saturday or Sunday. Probably not Sunday, but especially Saturday, and then UConn on Sunday. So there's a lot of things happening that prevent us from doing that, but hopefully we get to a point where that is feasible for us to do more podcasts, especially during a major, and kind of go day by day, which would certainly help us with the predictions, because we like text each other our pick'em for the weekend as it goes on, but not right now. But we appreciate the support that somebody actually wants to listen to us even more than they're getting right now. Please like, subscribe again, but also follow us on Twitter at JBink with 2Ks, at Pres Byers, the podcasters at Ego Chall Podcast. You can watch the streams live. We're typically live. This was a different week, but we're typically live on Wednesday afternoons and Sunday nights, talking about the matches. So on Sunday night, we will be discussing Major 2 and what happened, and maybe we're completely wrong and the Vancouver Surge are celebrating their major championship. Either way, we'll be live on both Twitch and YouTube, so the same YouTube that you can subscribe to, and you can follow and subscribe at twitch.tv/Ego Chall Podcast. While you're there, go over to twitch.tv/JBank with 2Ks, follow and subscribe there as well. And we'll be back on Sunday to talk about all these matches. I'm so tired of talking, so tired of dealing with the internet and technology. And I also have to go to my job in like half an hour. So, Bink, take it away.
Not going to hold you here too long then. Appreciate all the support. Appreciate Rickus Morty in the YouTube chat. Appreciate that comment, Preston. Mentioned earlier, I would love to get to a point where we're able to do this even more than we already do, but we're a ways away from that, but hopefully your guys' support, we just keep growing and that becomes a reality at some point. That'd be awesome. So yeah, sorry about the technical difficulties. Like Preston said, though, definitely not our fault this time. So I guess I'm saying sorry on Discord's behalf, but hopefully this didn't totally derail the preview show, just because this is my favorite shows and one of our favorite shows during this cycle. So hopefully it all works out. It sounds okay and everything for those listening or watching after the fact. But for people in the live stream, appreciate you stopping by and hanging with us through the technical difficulties. But yeah, Major 2 this weekend should be a fun time. Looking forward to it. And hopefully we got plenty to talk about on Sunday once all said and done. So until then, see you on the next. Thanks as always, and remember to send the chow.